welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. The biggest job we got done this week was hanging the perches for the new chook trailer. We'd already collected the branches, so all we had to do was hang them in place. We were using boards hung at different heights from the roof, with holes drilled in to then thread the branches through. So they were staggered down at different heights so that there were different places for the chooks to sleep. We've got 6 different levels in and they look really good. It's nice to sort of use the bush, but also use some store-bought boards to then make it straight and in line. We also increased the capacity of another one of the chook feeders, the ones that will go into the new trailer. We had experimented with making them taller so we could fit a lot more grain in, and that has worked. We've been using that for a few weeks now with our current flock of chooks, and it has not changed the way that the grain comes out at all. So we've done that with another one, and that will go in the chook trailer, which means that we're not having to be out there every day topping up their grain. So we're almost finished with the trailer. We just need to put a flooring in so that we can then pull that out and it's easy to clean. And then of course it's getting the chooks and getting secure electric fencing around it so that they have a safe spot to roam and range during the day, and then at night they will be secure inside the trailer. It's been another really cold week. We have had the fire going almost all of the time, which means we've used a lot of wood. So again, we spent another afternoon out in the bush, loading a lot more wood onto the trailer to have back at the house to use for the coming week. We are very proficient at it now. Adam does all of the cutting with the saw and I do most of the lifting and throwing into the trailer, and I also collect some smaller kindling as we go as well, so that we get everything done in a really short amount of time and we get a really nice full trailer load so that we have enough for an entire week. As well as getting out in the bush for firewood, I also spent some time just going for a walk. It has been cold, but the days have actually been fairly nice. And when you go for a walk, you warm up quite quickly. So I spent some time just wandering around, looking at new things, found myself a big mob of kangaroos, and just spent some time being quiet out in the bush by myself, which is nice. I took a day to do a bit of a yarn tidy up. I had been getting a little bit messy with my yarns. I keep everything in tubs so that they are clean and dry and protected over here in the shed. But I was sort of throwing things into the wrong tubs and throwing open skeins of dyed yarn just into a tub to protect them and not having sorted through it properly. And it was starting to get a little bit out of control. So I spent some time just sorting through everything, making sure that each of my dyed yarn was separated out by the base, and also making sure that all of the undyed yarn was in a tub by its base as well. I then made sticky labels and put them on the outsides of all of the tubs, so now I can really clearly see what's in each without having to open it up and go through it. I think that was part of my problem. I was going through other tubs to find things, whereas this way I don't have to guess. I can just see it and pop it in straight away. I was also then able to sort through what colours I have currently dyed up and make sure that what I have is also correct on the website as well. And so that's all up to date now. And I now sort of have a plan of what to dye next based on colours that have sold well previously, based on colours that I want to do samples of for the repeatable colourways page, and just sort of getting a variation of colour dyed up and ready to ship out, as well as being able to offer the dyed to order as well. So I feel much more organised now. I wasn't super unorganised before, but I think just putting the labels on and making it very easy to see where everything is has just just upped the game a little bit and made it super easy for me to be able to find everything. First to what I'm wearing this week. This is the Dragonflies jumper by Joji Locatelli. I seem to have knit quite a lot of her jumpers. They clearly fit my body shape and I understand her directions quite well. I really love this. It's got plain sleeves, but it's got this cabled sort of dragonfly motif on the front and back of the body. It's knit out of Colleen's Crafts Corriedale silk blend in this beautiful reddy purple pink kind of color, and it's got white through it as well, which is where the silk is, and the dye didn't take quite as well as on the Corriedale. I will link to my project below so you can have a look. Yes, I did finish the Flamingo Lane socks, and yes, they fit. I gifted them to my sister over the weekend and she was super happy with them. Thanks to lockdown, I got them finished much quicker than I probably would have otherwise. We would have been going into the city for some birthday celebrations, which clearly didn't happen. So I spent a lot of time knitting on those socks. And I am really happy after all of my initial issues with my color work that I was able to finish them and that they look really good and that they fit and that she's happy with them. So job done there, and maybe I'll give color work a break for a little while, but it is certainly something that I do want to do a little bit more of now that I've kind of got it down. Of course, as soon as a pair of socks was off the needles, I cast on a brand new pair. Just a plain kind of pair this time, but I am doing some striping with the colors. So this is actually two different yarns that I'm working on at the same time. So the heel is a solid blue teal color. It is some yarn that I have been using as the sort of soak up of some dyes that have been left in my pot. So it's been dipped in dye a number of different times to get this actual color. So it's a one of a kind that I have that I am using for a pair of socks. I have sold another one of them. I got a message on Instagram and it's going out this week, and I have two more if anyone is interested at the time of recording this. The other color that I'm using is Wildflowers, which is obviously one of my flower series colors. It is white with a whole lot of little pops of different colors in it, and it's coming up as little dots of color through here. What I'm doing with this is I'm actually knitting in a spiraling manner. It's called helical knitting. So you end up with no real join and you can't really tell where one stripe finishes and the other one ends. It's really, really clever and makes knitting with two colors really easy, and is giving it a really cool effect instead of just knitting a plain pair of socks. So I've got the heel in on the first one, and I'm going to do probably another this much maybe on the leg, and then do a cuff in the plain blue again, and then I will knit the second one. With these ones, I'll be able to get them exactly the same size because I can count the number of stripes, and then they will end up being the same without having to do counting every single round. I worked on a very tiny scarf. My sister does amigurumi crochet and she just finished a badger, and she asked that I knit a Hufflepuff style scarf for the little character to wear. So I got out some yellow and black yarn and just knitted a really tiny little tube. It took just an afternoon to do. I just started with Judy's Magic Cast On, did a tiny little tube, and then kitched it at the end, and he is now got his little scarf. I've started the first sleeve of my Radiate pullover. I'm actually up to the decreases already. It's gone quite quickly. I am doing them one at a time though, so I do have to kind of concentrate because I have to make sure that I record each row so that I knit the second sleeve exactly the same. Nothing worse than knitting a second sleeve and finding that you've miscounted the rows and you've got sleeves that are completely different lengths. I'm using the Chiagoo Shorties to knit the sleeves on these. I bought them from Unwind Craft Cafe and they popped them in the mail for me, and I got them at the start of this week. I'm still learning how to use them. They're a little bit different to what I've done before, mostly because the tips are so short. They come in this tiny little case and you get 3 different cord lengths as well as 2 different lengths of tips. So you get 3.5 to 3.75, 4mm, 4.5 and 5 in 2 different lengths of tip. So you can choose which one you use, and then that slightly alters your overall circumference of your knitting to be able to knit in the round on a very short circle. So the biggest starting point that I wasn't sure about is actually how long to make the cable and which tips to use. So I'm using the middle length cable at the moment, and I've been using the short tips. So it's a little bit bunched up, and I think that that makes it work the best because you don't have to move your stitches around quite so much. They tend to just flow. One thing I have found is that you do need to put the stoppers on when you're not working on your project. Because you're on that really short circumference, you've got nothing to push it back down to, and they just pop back onto the tips and the stitches can pop straight off. So I've got the stoppers on there at the moment, and then when I want to work on it, I have to put the tips back on. So yeah, I'm still learning how to use the needles and get the feel for them. Because the tips are quite short, it feels different to knit with. What I have noticed is that it obviously doesn't leave a seam because you're not connecting between 2 needles like you do with magic loop, or if you use 2 at a time. So that's nice. It's making the sleeve really smooth and round, and I think it will be quicker. It does feel like it's been quicker so far. In a few weeks, once I have knit a bit more on these sleeves, I think that I will do a bit of a comparison, pros and cons between all of the different circular needles that I use. There's double points, there's the crazy Addy needles, the 3 that I'm using for the socks I'm currently working on. There is magic loop, there is 2 circulars at a time, and there is these shorties. So I think I'm going to go through some pros and cons for each and how I like them, and that might help you to determine what might work for you in terms of knitting in the round. And I think there's going to be, for me, different needles that I use for different occasions. I don't think I will automatically switch to only using one type. I think that it will depend on what the project is, what I will be choosing to use. And I think that's really good to have a lot of tools at your disposal that you know how to use, so that you can find the best one for the project, so that you actually enjoy working on the project, you get it done in the most efficient and quick way possible, that you don't hurt your hands or struggle with it, that it actually becomes an enjoyable process and you get the desired outcome. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.